Okay, so today we are working on 4.2 Notes Day 1. And what I would like for you, let's see if I can get that a little brighter. I'd like for you to make sure that you're copying down here the notes for our new method here called the Hamilton method. Now, this is where you'll upload it. Make sure that you're writing it down and not just taking mine and uploading it, because you will not get points if you just copy mine, as in like download as a PDF and then re-upload as it. If you write your own words down, that's fine. If it's in your handwriting, that's fine. So this is called the Hamilton method and quota rule. If you remember back in 4.1, we had issues with it not necessarily totaling out the right way that we wanted it to. So we have to, figure out how to fix that. So the Hamilton method is that every state will get at least its lower quota. You can't get lower than your lower quota. Remember, that's just when we round down. So, for example, one in our Hamilton method up here, it's blank on yours. It says the six nations with 250 seats for Congress, calculations back from 4.1. As you can see here are standard divider. Remember, we found that out. So what we want to do is calculate their standard quotas. And what we do is, remember, to calculate the standard quota, you take their population and you divide it by the, you divide it by the standard divisor. So those are all the decimals that we get out. Now, the standard quota should always add back up to give you the number of seats. However, if we're using the Hamilton method, we have to find their lower quota. So here's our lower quota. The problem with this is that we are under the total number of seats by 4. And you calculated this back in 4.1. So for this, we have an actual surplus, back kind of like what we did in Module 3. So we have a surplus here. So what are we going to do with the surplus? How are we going to fix this surplus? So remember, we're going to find the decimal for each state's standard quota and give one seat to each state from the largest to smallest decimals until the surplus has ended. So looking here, we are going to take their decimals, we're going to list them out, and we're going to give an extra seat to all the people, all the states that have a higher decimal. So the highest 4 decimals here, because it's got to be 4, is 0.92, 0.71, 0.87, and 0.67. So the surplus of those 4 seats is given out to state A, state B, state D, and state F, because they had the higher decimals. So then we just put that back into the allocation of the seats and just kind of add it back in. So that way everybody gets at least their lower quota. So now you can see how we get everything out. This is, again, is Hamilton's method, and Hamilton's method is not population neutral. So it is biased in favor of larger or smaller states. So the larger the state is, really the better it's kind of benefiting. It's not helping the smaller states, it's helping the larger states for the Hamilton method. Let's maybe stop thinking about this as it relates to states and maybe go into example 2 here with Mrs. Phillips. Mrs. Phillips has 50 pieces of chocolate to divide among her 5 children. We did this back in 4.1 as well. So all of this information you already have. And we found the standard quotas, right? So standard quotas, we found the lower quota, and then what we're going to do is we're going to associate, since there's a surplus of 2, we need to find out, right, up and down, who has the higher numbers. So 6.61, 0.39, those are the 2 bigger decimals. So then child 3 and child 4, or excuse me, child 3 and child 5 get the extra pieces from that surplus. And there's the apportionment as it's been divvied out. So there's 2 more examples here that really go through that same thing. I'll let you look those over, but the fairness criteria and quota rule, I want to talk about these. So the fairness criterion or quota rule is a state shouldn't be apportioned a number of seats smaller than its lower quota or larger than its upper quota. So that's kind of the fairness. Now the problem with this is it doesn't meet it, because this goes, for some of them, it doesn't go beyond their upper quota, but it might go above if the surplus is greater. So we'll kind of deal with that later. The minimum equals the lower quota, the maximum equals the upper quota. So you can't get more than the upper and you can't get less than the lower. Now this notation is just saying that exact thing. The Hamilton method satisfies this as long as our surplus is not more than the number of players. The lower quota violation, a state is a proportioned or the number of seats less than the lower quota, that's a violation, and the upper quota violation is if it goes more than that. So that's just kind of the notation and how you would identify, how you would say, hey, it violates the upper quota rule, so it's an upper quota violation, or it's a lower quota violation if it's less than the number of seats in the lower quota. Pretty simple notes here today. Make sure you get those down. Make sure that you're uh, writing it and submitting it, okay? Make sure to make up all your makeup work as well.